Throughout the back half of 2020, I was very lucky and very blessed to be able to spend about 6 months touring around the country with the Walkaway campaign, doing rallies all over the place to try to get people to wake up, leave the left, leave the Democratic Party, hopefully vote for Trump in the election. I mean, we didn't exactly get the result we wanted, but to be honest, Walkaway was the only organization out there that was actually doing in-person events. I'm really proud of the work we did. And by the way, Brandon's fine. Brandon's fine. There's going to be movement on his case in about a week. They should know more about what's happening. And Walkaway's been doing so much behind the scenes. I'm going to have the director of the Walkaway PAC on this channel live on Monday, and he's going to be able to tell us more. But the reason I bring this up is I remember when we were all at a house together on election night in Florida, and we even traveled to Atlanta after the election we actually did an epic rally in front of CNN where we basically had to blast CNN, which was awesome. And then they went and did some Stop the Steal stuff. I kind of hung out. I didn't do any of the Stop the Steal things for many, many reasons. But I bring this up because one of the things that I said to Brandon on more than one occasion is that maybe Joe Biden being president would actually be one of the very best things that could ever happen to the walkaway movement, because it would force people into a position of confronting exactly how bad the Democrats are. Listen, when I left the Democratic Party at the beginning of 2020, it wasn't because I loved Donald Trump. That wasn't it at all. It was not because I love the Republican Party. I think the Republican Party sucks. I'm sorry for those of you who really, really love it, but I think the Republican Party sucks. I think they're so bad. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in this video. But I didn't leave the Democratic Party because I was like, rah, Trump. I grew to appreciate Trump more over time. I did ultimately end up voting for Trump in the 2020 election. And to be frank, it wasn't even a hard decision to make. But I will say I didn't vote for Trump just out of spite of hating the Democrats so much. I grew to appreciate what he was trying to do. And after the election, I really kind of thought, well, if the country doesn't get it, and we can quibble about whether or not we actually believe the results of the election, I'm keeping my opinion to myself because I don't want to get a strike on my channel, but it almost doesn't even matter for the purpose of this, because we can quibble about all sorts of things, but until people are actually confronted with how bad the Democratic Party is, with how incompetent they are, with how crazy, batshit insane some of their policies are, then nothing was going to change. And if so many people, and again, I'm not suggesting that I necessarily believe that 81 million people voted for Joe Biden, but if so many people want that type of leadership and power, then they should be absolutely confronted with how awful that decision is. And if they are confronted with how awful that decision is, that could be the very best thing that ever happens in terms of the future of the country. Listen, I'm going to be blunt. I do this podcast called Unscrewed. We just launched our 4th episode actually with my friend Truman, Return to Reason. I strongly recommend you give it a listen. It's like a long form discussion about all the things that Truman and I, as disaffected lefties, kind of think are wrong with the country. And one of the things we talked about in a couple of our episodes is that we quite frankly don't think that the right takes their responsibility in terms of winning the culture war. We don't think they take it seriously. We don't think they take it seriously at all. And it's because they aren't approaching it in any sort of strategic way that is telling us that they actually care about winning. So the only hope that we have left, if we can't count on the political right, and I'm grouping a lot of people into that bucket, whether they be conservatives or Republicans or MAGA or what have you, if we can't count on the political right to take their responsibility to win the culture war seriously, then the only place that we have to look is to the disaffected left, to the people who are waking up and leaving the Democratic Party. And it seems as though more people are than ever. And it might be because of this absolute foobar in Afghanistan. It might be because of something else, but we have new data out today that tells us that a lot of people are really regretful of the vote they made in 2020. And don't say we didn't warn you. I spent 6 months traveling around the country trying to wake people up. Not necessarily, people were so quick to say, oh, you're just a Trump cultist or whatever. I was never a Trump cultist. I don't mind Trump, and I'll talk a little bit more about what I think about Trump running again in 2024 a little bit later in this video. I don't mind Trump, but for me, this was never a question of like, isn't Trump the greatest thing since sliced bread? It was a question of like, the Democratic Party is really, 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 really bad. And they are going to destroy this country with the direction they are headed in. And you don't need to love Donald Trump or everything that he does to understand that he was, in fact, the better of the two options in the 2020 election. And more people are starting to understand that. Stunning poll reveals Trump would win election held today as nearly 1 in 10 Democrats regret their 2020 vote. This is from the National Pulse. Let's see. Stunning poll numbers from Rasmussen Reports suggest nearly 1 in 10 Democrats regret their vote in the 2020 presidential election, 12% of moderates saying the same, and 14% of Black Americans expressing regret. Furthermore, asked how people would vote if a presidential election was held today, just 37% said they would vote for Joe Biden, down from 45% who said they did. 43% said they would vote for Donald Trump. And this is what happens when you put your blinders on and listen to everything the media tells you. Trump was never that bad of a guy. He was never that bad of a president. The media absolutely sabotaged him from the get-go. And I really do wonder, because Trump was able to accomplish things. I really do wonder how much more he would have been able to accomplish if the media hadn't been lying about him every single day. Listen, again, you don't need to be a conservative. You don't need to be a Trump supporter to acknowledge that the Democratic Party has gone insane and that the media lying to millions of people every single day is a really bad thing. That is not good for the country. That is not, like, when the media takes a political stance and then lies and lies and lies and lies and lies to try to support their political stance, when it ignores data that is put in front of it saying you're wrong or you're interpreting this wrong or there's another way to look at this, actively ignores all that information, that is not good for our country, man. It's simply not. The Rasmussen numbers shine a new light on just how poorly Joe Biden has performed in his first few months as president of the United States. Just 37% of voters say they would vote for Biden today. 13% of Democrats say they would vote for Trump today. 13% of Democrats say they would vote for Trump today. Now, this is not a time, I'm speaking to the political right, because you guys are going to want to dunk on this. You're going to want to say, ha, we told you. That's not what you do when people are waking up. If 13% of Democrats are saying that they would vote for Trump today, and they are met with you laughing in their face and saying, I told you so, you are not creating an environment to help them through probably the massive cognitive dissonance that they are experiencing. We got to be strategic about this. If you take umbrage with the fact that I said the political right is not taking their role in the culture war seriously, then show me through your actions, show me through your behaviors that you take the role of waking people on the left up seriously. And you do that by acting strategically. You do that by acting in a way that facilitates them waking up, not that's going to send them right back into their little echo chamber. Moderate voters' support for Biden has plummeted 13 points, while Trump has gained. 11% of 18 to 39-year-olds regret their vote in 2020. 14% of Black Americans regret their vote in 2020. 9% of Democrats regret their vote in 2020. 12% of moderates regret their 2020 vote. There's nothing we can do to change the outcome of the election. Like it or not, there is absolutely nothing we can do. The only thing we can do is move forward. The only thing that we can do is do our best to wake up as many people on the left who are now being exposed to the epic amount of BS that the Democratic Party and the media have sold them. We have got to give them a place to land. We've got to give them a place where they're not required to pass some sort of conservative purity test in order to be listened to or in order to be taken seriously. I've thought a lot about this. And I don't, it was very easy for me to shouldn't say very easy. It took 6 months for me to wake up. It was a long process. It wasn't just, a lot of people think I just went to a Trump rally and that was it. That wasn't what happened. It took about 6 months. So it wasn't easy for me to wake up. But it was a lot easier than it would have been today because at least I had a place to land. I don't know where people are landing today. The walkaway campaign got completely kicked off Facebook. Yes, they are coming back. They're going to be launching their own network, but that's going to take time to rebuild, and that's not there yet. There are people who, like Bridget Fetisi, considers herself like the land of the politically homeless. She is a place that they can land. I think that you can look at disaffected people like Truman and I as places to land where we don't really, yes, I may have voted for Trump in 2020, but I think the Republican Party is like pretty effed otherwise, and I'm really, really not a fan. I mean, just more reasonable places where people can land, but those places are hard to find, and there's no central hub. I truly don't know if I would have woken up today. I truly don't know if I would have, because I don't know if that support system is really there. Let's take a look at the rest of this article. Maybe it'll give us some answers. Joe Biden's approval numbers continue to decline. Well, numbers from Real Clear Politics reveal that up to 55% of Americans thought the country was on the right track in March. That number has plummeted to 31%. Now, this doesn't come as a surprise to any of us who were paying attention, right? We all knew it was going to go in this direction. We all knew that Joe Biden was lying when he said that he was the one that was going to control the pandemic, and all that needs to happen is to get the vaccination. Be 90 days, 90 days, 90 days. And now we don't even know if we're going to be able to have Thanksgiving this year. Well, of course you can have Thanksgiving. You just might not have it blessed under Herr Biden. But of course this was never in control. That was always a lie. It was always a lie from the very beginning. And now people are seeing. On Tuesday, President Obama's director of global engagement called for the firing of Biden National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan following on from the Afghanistan debacle. I mean, that's just going to keep going on and on and on. I mean, I'm not actually convinced that I think the Afghanistan debacle would happen either way, to be really honest. I think Trump would have managed it a lot better. I think Trump would have gotten Americans out first. I think Trump would have gotten our equipment out first. I think Trump would have made sure that the documents at the embassy were burned. But do I think the Taliban ultimately would have taken over the country? Yup. I think it would have happened either way. I just think the withdrawal would have been better managed and it would have already been done if Trump was still in office. But that's not to say it would be any less of like an ultimate shit show, showing that we spent 20 years in the country for absolutely nothing. But I digress. That's not really the point of this video. The point is that people are waking up. Now, what happens in 2024? Well, we think that Trump might be running again. A lot of people are saying that Trump's running again. I don't know. I have such mixed thoughts about it. And it's not that I wouldn't consider supporting him, even though ultimately what I'm really excited about is hopefully Dave Smith running on the Libertarian ticket. I think that would be really, really, really exciting to watch. I think it'd be another Ron Paul revolution. But let's just look at the possibility of Trump running again. I'm not convinced it's the best idea in the world, and it's not necessarily because I don't want it. I think it would be a circus, and I think it would be very entertaining. But I also look at like someone like a Ron DeSantis, who might be much more palatable to the general public. But Trump also did give an interview on Fox News the other night on Hannity, where to me, he looked really presidential. He actually looked more presidential in that interview than anything that I've seen Biden do. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think the media is going to try to skewer whoever the Republican candidate is either way. So that's kind of a wash. It's like they're going to try to character assassinate anyone. Trump might be too toxic to pull it off. I don't know, but he could also be the mad genius that does it now that so many people are waking up and realizing how much the Democrats lied to them. But hey, I'd love to hear your opinion. Do you want to see Trump run again in 2024? How do you think that would go over? Do you think he would have a possibility to win? I truly don't know at this point. I truly don't. I'm kind of sitting back and I just want to watch this circus kind of play out and talk about what I think about it. But I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment, Let me know what you think, and if you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. Definitely turning on notifications, because that's really like the only way that I can offer you to have any hope of actually being served my content when it posts. But definitely, if you think you're subscribed, just double check for me. Sometimes YouTube likes to make that decision for you. But I do post content almost every single day of the week around news, politics, culture, really whatever I find interesting. That's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.